Welcome to Write the World. I'm your host, Lorana Hoops, and this is the show where we talk to lots of different authors and writers from all sorts of genres so that you can find out more about what it takes to be an author and also so you can find some really great, amazing books. And today I have a wonderful author with us today. This is Denise Liebig. How are you doing, Denise?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Did I say your last name right?
It's actually Liebig.
Liebig. Okay. It
Yes.
looks like Liebig. When I was looking it up, I was like, oh, okay, Liebig. Denise Liebig.
Yeah.
All right. So, Denise, and you write romances as well, right?
I do. I write historical fiction with romance in it, and also there's a lot of twists and turns, so it's kind of a multi-genre. I've written a trilogy so far. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about how you got started writing.
I actually, ever since I was little, I enjoyed writing and illustrating, and Beatrix Potter, I think, was my biggest influence. And although I'm not doing children's books, I just really enjoyed all of her work. And then I got more into Agatha Christie and into mysteries and that sort of thing. And when I got a little bit older, I started raising kids and kind of went that route for a while. Everything got put on hold, and I found myself in a situation where I could stay home and have no kids and could start writing. And so that's what got me going in the writing, and I haven't stopped. So it's been kind of an exciting journey for me.
I'm looking forward to that day when I can stay home.
I know. I see you have little kids, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm still in that previous stage, and my youngest is 2, so they're busy, which means that I typically am writing at like 9 o'clock at night after they're asleep, and that's not generally, the best time for my brain to be going because it's
you're ready to be asleep yourself. So.
So were you like me? I also always wanted to write, and I remember, and I still have some somewhere. I remember writing these little stories when I was young, and I did my own illustrations. And I'm a terrible artist, and I was even worse back then. But did you do that too? Did you have like these little books, these little stories that you would write when you were, 7, 8, 9?
Yes, I did. In fact, I always loved that part in school where the teacher would give you that piece of paper with all the lines at the bottom and the blank spot at the top, and then you got to write the little story and draw the picture. That was my favorite. I kept all my little stories, and sometimes the teacher would have us write the story, and then we could illustrate the front page of it, be stapled on. I have some really crazy ones that I put together when I was growing up. But yeah, that was always, creative writing was always my favorite part of school.
Me too. Did you ever pull them out later and be like, oh, wow, I really was not as good as I thought I was?
No, and then I was like, how did I get that A? How did that happen?
I pull out one, and I'm an English teacher now, so it always makes me laugh, but I pulled out one, and I had pictures, Pitchers. My illustration, I did pictures, but I wrote pictures, and I thought, oh my goodness. But it's good to know how far I've come now.
Yeah, exactly. At least you have.
It's true. I don't still spell it pictures. That's right.
That's awesome.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your first book. And this book you said you have on sale for 99 cents, right?
I do. It's called Dear Maude, and in fact, I have a copy right here if I could put up there.
Yes, please. We want to see the cover.
Dear Maude.
Oh, that's so pretty. I like that.
Thank you. And I started, actually, it was kind of a weird thing. It kind of, how you start writing something and it morphs into something else. Well, the idea behind this series was I was watching a silent movie thing on one of the channels on cable, and I thought, well, wouldn't that be interesting to be a fly in the wall back then? Because when you watched a silent movie, there was no air conditioning. They would have to prop the doors open, and if there was too much traffic going by, you couldn't watch the movie. And I thought, well, what else happened back then that I didn't even think about that would be totally different than the way it is today? And so I started researching different time periods, and the story Dear Maude actually just kind of morphed from there. But it's about a modern girl who gets a scholarship for college, has it all paid for, but the deal is when she graduates, she has to work for the company that sponsored. and she has no idea about anything, but she is a sociology major, so she studied different time frames. And so she thinks, okay, well, I'm just going to do market research, or I'm going to do something and just be a specialist in different time frames. And so that's what she goes in thinking she's going to do, but it's totally different than what she could have ever imagined. And the whole series is about this first job and where it takes her. And the first book is her just kind of settling in, figuring it out, and realizing that she knows nothing. It's all different. In fact, the world is different than she thought it was. So that's what the first book is about, Dear Maude, and it kind of went from there. And there's 3 of them, and the third one will be coming out here the end of the 28th, so next Friday.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. So we have the first book, Dear Maude, and then do you have the love story tied in with this, or is this more of the historical part where it kind of sets it up?
Actually, it's both. There's the love story tied into it. There is a character. The main character in the book, even though it's called Dear Maude, the main character is Emily, and Emily likes to write journal entries to her deceased great-great-aunt Maude. And when she was growing up, her and Maude were friends. Maude always had her back. She stuck up for her in every situation. She didn't really care if anybody didn't really go for the way she was sticking up for Emily, but they were best buddies. And she passed away when Emily was 15, but she continued to write to her. And so that's where you get the Dear Maude from. And there is a love interest that develops throughout actually all 3 of the books. And it just kind of flows from one to the next. And I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, really. Don't give it so much away that they don't want to read it. So what's the second book called?
The second book is For the Love of Maude. There's Maude in all of them. So it's For the Love of Maude is the second one.
I love that.
Thank you. And the third book is called Forever Maude. And the 3 together are the Dear Maude trilogy. Okay. So there's Maude and everything, and she has an influence in Emily's life throughout all 3 books, and so that's why Maude is part of all 3. So.
That's awesome. Now, is this third book? Do you think this is going to wrap up the series, or do you think there's a 4th book somewhere in there?
No, this is going to wrap it up. The first book is they're all 3 standalones. The first one, there is no cliffhanger. The second one, there's definitely a cliffhanger. The third one wraps it all up in a nice, neat little bow, and they drive off into the sunset. So that's the way it should be.
Right. So if you're looking for your happily ever after, you might have to read all 3 books to get it, but you will get it at the end.
Yeah. And actually you can pick up at any point, but it's nice to read when you have a trilogy or a series. It's always nice to read the first book first, but you can read all 3 in the wrong order if you like, but it's nice to pick up the first one and start from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, and so your books are available, I know, on Amazon, but do you have them available anywhere else?
Yes, actually, they're the first 2 are available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, all the different places. I have the first book out on paperback, and the second and third will be back out on paperback next month sometime. And the third book for a while will just be available in ebook on Amazon, but then it'll go into the other formats. I'll probably go exclusive for about 90 days, and then after that I'll go into the other formats for the third book.
Awesome. So that brings me to another question. KDP, with their exclusive rights, do you find that it works really well? Because I don't know, I had my books in KDP. I watched a couple of videos of people who were like, yeah, don't use KDP because they're really people looking for, free books, and they're not quite the same audience as people who pay for your books. And I'm just curious, what's your experience been with the KDP?
Yeah. Well, I tried it with my second book, and honestly, I didn't research it enough to know how to use the power of it. So I went through the period of time, the 90 days that they have you do it. And then I thought, you know what, I really did not utilize this correctly. So I took it off of that and put it on the other channels. But now that I've done a little bit more research and I've finished the third book, I have a little bit more time to actually look into the marketing and all that sort of thing. I can see how it would benefit you, especially if you do some ads and different things like that. And you can market it as free because it is free if you have the membership and, you know, the KDP. So, you know, there's different ways to put it out there. And so I just thought I'd try it again with this third one and dig a little bit deeper than I did before and see the benefits of it. But I mean, I can see how it could be beneficial. I just, like I said, this is kind of the third time or the, you know, but I'm giving it a shot. I'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I haven't run any ads with my books either. I also have a trilogy out and I'm working on the fourth one. And I haven't looked into ads, just mainly usually for monetary reasons. You know, I don't always have the promotion budget. But I did like the fact that people could check it out and read it. And I found, at least from my own reports, that I typically actually make more money if a person checks it out and reads it than if they buy the ebook, because you get a percentage of that large fund at the end rather than just that, you know, the 70% of whatever you put your book at. So I'm kind of torn in that whole, like, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? And I haven't really seen on my book sales from other avenues, internet wise. I mean, I have them in print form and I've seen the print form sale, but I haven't really seen internet wise them selling any place other than Amazon. So I'm not sure if there really is a reason not to have them in at this point, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of people tend to gravitate more towards Amazon than maybe some of the other avenues. But I think there's a lot of fans in the other areas also that maybe are a little underrepresented. You know, they don't get the ads as much. So I think I would like to look into that also, maybe marketing more into those other ones and just kind of seeing where that could lead also. Because I think the more places your book is available, the better. So it just, the problem is getting it recognized, you know, letting people know about it. I think that's probably the biggest challenge in marketing is just, hey, here's my book, but then they're like, well, who are you? So why should I read it? I think that's the biggest challenge right there.
Yes.
In a nutshell.
For sure. And so that kind of leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is what are some things that you have found in getting this series out that have been the hardest things for you? And then maybe some advice for people who are just starting. So we'll start with the first one. What's been the hardest thing for you in this process?
I think the hardest thing, I thought the hardest thing would be to write the book, but that was actually the easiest thing. The hardest thing is in the marketing. And when I first started, I didn't even have a Facebook account. I didn't have any social media whatsoever. So I had to actually start from scratch with everything and build my entire platform from nothing. And so that to me was the most difficult because, I mean, I didn't have Facebook. I didn't even have personal Facebook. I didn't have Twitter. I didn't have LinkedIn. I didn't have any of that stuff. So I built that platform or started to. I think that's something you work on every day anyways. But I had to start from scratch on that and then look into also, well, how do I get my book out there? What are some other ways to market it? And so I think that's been the biggest challenge, just marketing, everything to do with it. And it's all such a social thing. There aren't bookstores as much as there used to be that you could get your stuff into. And as an independent publisher, you really probably wouldn't get into those bookstores anyways. So I think that's been just the biggest challenge is just getting the marketing going, trying to come up with a system, trying to find other people out there who aren't just trying to sell me on their system, because plenty of people out there make their money off of people like me or any other author who's trying to figure it out, but they don't know what to do and they need a little direction. They spend all this money and all that really happens is that other person makes money off of you and you still don't get your book out there.
I have received a lot of those emails about like, hey, pay us, $60 and we'll give you the formula for making your book a bestseller, or hey, here's $200 and we'll set you up in libraries and stuff. And I'm just like, and I've looked at a couple of them because they always have that money back guarantee. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look at it and then I'm gonna take my money back if it doesn't work. And I generally find that it's all just a bunch of information about steps you could take, but nothing that really is gonna get you there.
Exactly. And then they publish this book and you go and look at their book and you see that they have no sales. Their ranking is terrible.
Right.
Like, why should I believe you when you're not even doing what you're supposedly saying I should be doing?
Yes, that's very true. So have you found anything that works? Because I think especially as indie authors, we always find that promotion is the hardest part. Have you found anything that has worked really well for you?
Actually, just this, like meeting people like you, meeting in groups, talking to other authors and just trying different things. I think that's worked the best for me, just networking with other authors. And really, I haven't found that magic formula yet, but I play around with all sorts of different things, and some things click and some things don't. And I think at some point, it'll all come together. But I think the face-to-face, the human contact is the most important thing. And I know that building email lists and having subscribers and actually having something like what you have with your blog and, with your interviews and making contact with humans, I think is the biggest thing, because the whole social thing creates kind of a barrier between you and your readers. And I think the closer you can draw your reader to you, the better. And so I think that's the best, and that's the most important thing. And that's what I found the most success with, is just trying to break down that barrier and bring the reader closer in.
I have also had a really hard time with email lists. And maybe I'm just a little technology deficient, but I've looked into like MailerChimp, and there's some weird, I don't remember what it is now, but there was some weird formatting thing that I couldn't get past. And so I couldn't get it to set up correctly. And then I looked at, what was that?
I said, oh boy, yeah, I haven't even gotten that far. So
yeah.
That's good.
And then I looked at like another one, MailerLite, and I was like, oh, this looks great. But again, I couldn't figure out how to get, people to like click on it. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm still in that process of building that newsletter list.
Yeah, I think that once you get there, though, I think that'll be key. And what I've been doing is doing ads through other services that actually already have the list available, and I advertise on it. And that's what I've been doing. I figure I could do that until I build my own list. So that's really what I've been doing most of.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. So, okay, so we know that promotion is always the hardest part. What's a piece of advice that you would give to someone new, someone who maybe is like, oh, I have this book inside of me and I want to write it and get it out there. What's a piece of advice you would give to a new author who is looking to start doing what we're doing?
Okay. I think that they probably shouldn't do like me and wait to build their platform when they publish. I think if they can start building it when they're writing, that'll be a whole lot easier than having to, oh, here's my book, and oh my gosh, I don't have any way to tell anyone about it. So I think building the platform now with their Facebook and Twitter and that sort of thing, I think that is very helpful. The other thing too is just to write like every single day. Something, it doesn't matter what it is, just to keep your hone in on your skills and read all the books you can about writing. And then when you're done, have a family member, have somebody read through it, but they're going to be nice to you. Yeah. Find somebody who's not going to be so nice. Hire a proofreader, an editor, somebody who's going to hack it up. And I think that's huge, because you want to put out a good product. But your family's going to say, oh, honey, it's wonderful. But you need that person that says, you should delete chapter 5. You don't even need it. And you're like, killing your babies or whatever, murder your whatever. There's a phrase for that. But, because you love, it's your darlings, I think. Murder your darlings or kill your darlings. Because chapter 5 is like one of your babies. But chapter 5 maybe doesn't help the story flow or whatever, you have to get rid of it, and you have to make that sacrifice for the book. But your family members aren't going to tell you that. An editor will, though, because you're paying that editor to be honest with you. So I think that's huge. Even though you think, oh, I'm a great writer, blah blah blah, everybody needs an editor, and
Yeah,
I think that's an important thing for a new writer to know, that you need somebody who's paid to look over your shoulder and let you know the do's and the don'ts, and what needs to go out the window. So.
and something I didn't realize, I've been doing a lot of research into, the craft of writing too, because I'm pretty much self-taught. I didn't go to, school to write. I went to school to teach. And with that kind of came writing. But that a lot of times when you're giving it to friends and family, they don't always know the real craft of the storytelling. And so they may like it, but not really love it, but not really know why they don't love it. And so when I was reading this, it was all about, you need to let someone read it who knows the craft of a good story, so that they can tell you, hey, you're missing this part of the story, or hey, you're missing this part of the story, or this part's too long, or this part's too short, or whatever. And people who haven't studied story crafting don't necessarily know that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and there's a lot to it, more than you think. There's a lot to that part of it. And first they say, okay, just write for yourself, but then when you go back through the 12 million edits that you personally do, you have to kind of think about your audience at some point in there.
I am teaching currently a story writing class, and I'm telling that to the kids, and they're like, but I just want to write for me. And I was like, well, that's great. If you want to write for you and you don't ever plan on getting your book out, that's fine. I was like, but if you want people to read it, you got to remember that they are people who have their own tastes. And especially when it comes to genres, like there are certain things you have to do or certain things you can't do, or your book doesn't generally do very well. And they had a really hard time with that. They're like, I don't want to have to include that. And I was like, well, then just don't expect people in that genre to really like your book, because they're going to be expecting this.
I
like
agree.
Romances, like we write, I watched a video from a really successful romance author, and she said, you have to have a happily ever after. Like it may not have to be in the first book if you're writing a series, but if it doesn't come by the end of the series, then your readers aren't going to stick with you. Like that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody wants that. They don't want to be this left hanging either. So that's important to put a little bow at the end and send it off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the hard part obviously is promotion, but let's talk about the fun part. What's your favorite part of the writing process?
I like to, I kind of do it like it's a movie. So I sit there, I'm all nice and quiet, and I do dialogue. I walk up, pace the house, and think, oh, that's good. Go down, type it up. I do dialogue like it's a movie, and that to me is so much fun. I get it going in the morning in my head, and then I sit down, and I start writing, and the hours just like fly by. I absolutely love the entire writing process, up to like the end of the first draft. And what I did with my first book is, as I got done with the chapter, I'd read it to my husband. So it was kind of like a serial, and then at the next day, he's like, so did you write a chapter today? Because he was all excited to have me read the next chapter for him so he could see how the story progressed. And that is another fun part of the writing process, is just getting the feedback like that day from someone, from my husband. So yeah, I just love the whole process of it.
Maybe that's what I need to do. My husband isn't totally on board with my writing yet, and I think it's probably because of the time. Because unlike you, I don't get to just write all day while he's at work. I tend to have to read in the evening. But maybe if I draw him in and I'm like, here, let me read you what I wrote, then I can get buy in a little bit. And I think you kind of base a lot of your, like, the characters and things on people you've met. My husband's clearly in my book. I'm in my book. Some of people I've met in the past, or not them, but maybe a combination of them are in the book. So, maybe if he knows he's part of it in ways that he didn't know he was part of it, that might draw him in too. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I do the same thing. I always take at least a little bit of something. So I have
Yeah.
a piece of myself in all three of my characters in the book. And then I have, pieces from family members and friends that I've met along the way that I put
Yeah.
into, and they're not full characters, but just, little quirks that they do or a little part of their backstory that I pull in that I think really makes the characters come to life.
Yeah, because they always say write what you know, but you kind of have to use people too, or parts of people, like, that helps a lot.
Absolutely. So something I'm curious about, because my first three books were all in a place where they were really realistic for me. Like I wanted to write them about a place that I grew up or a place close to where I grew up. And I like them. But I'm starting this fourth book and I'm putting it in a totally like made up place. And I'm actually finding it maybe a little bit easier and a little more fun because I get to totally create this real world but imaginary world, and so I'm curious, do you write more realistic, or do you create your own little stories, little cities and towns and things like that when you're writing?
Actually, a little bit of a combination of both. My main character Emily is from St. Helens, Oregon, and I grew up in Portland, and so I'm familiar. I have family in St. Helens, so I wanted to make her from somewhere that I can be familiar with. But then she goes to college in New York, and I made up the college. I made up where the business or the corporation where she has to go to work after college. I made up where their corporate headquarters is. But then I also had, throughout the stories, I also go to legitimate places that I had to actually look up and find old street maps and, do some real research on these real places. And so I do a combination of both, but that's kind of where the historical fiction fits in too, where I have to go back and look at things that existed, which is actually a real fun part. I guess I should have added that earlier about the writing process. I love research, but that's generally not part of my first draft. That comes in later when I'm trying to put the details in. But I absolutely love research. I'm a total nerd. I mean, I will go anywhere to do the research. And I think in future books, I'm going to need to travel. That'll be a good excuse to, go somewhere new.
Right. That's awesome. Honey, I need to do some research on a book. So let's go to Italy.
Exactly. And then you really have to write a book about Italy because you're going to have to produce at that point.
I love it. Do you think you can write that off as sort of a travel expense if you're...
I think not. I think, it's a legitimate thing if you end up writing about the place that you're traveling to. That's my plan anyways. I'm going to go with that.
I'm going to have to hire an accountant and see how much can I actually write off, because I got some trips I want to take in my mind.
That's right. Exactly. In your mind and in your life, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Probably gonna have to wait a little bit for when the kids are older, because I can't imagine a flight with a 2-year-old right now. But
no, you wouldn't be doing much research either. So.
No. At least not for the type of books I write.
No.
Okay, so in your books, do you have a favorite character? Do you have one that's just kind of like stuck out to you? You're like, oh, I really just love this character.
Actually, Maude. I absolutely love Maude. And since there's a lot of me and Emily, I had to love Maude because she loves Maude. And so I created a character that was very, very likable. The other character that I like is Emily's mom's boyfriend. There's just something about that guy. I've always just like him. And there's certain parts in my books when I write, I bawl. I just cry because I'm so into I'm so into the character, so into this, that I kind of bonded with it, I guess you could say. So yeah, there's quite a few characters, and Dell, Emily's love interest later on. I really like him too, but yeah, I actually don't really have a whole lot of characters I don't like, except for the ones that aren't likable, the ones that are meant to not likable. So
that's true. There's always those characters you put in there that you're like, these are characters you're supposed to not like, and therefore I don't like them.
Yeah, and they're a culmination of all of the people I've met in my life who I don't like, and or things about people I don't like. And here's this one character that's everything bad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so the third book again is Forever Maude.
Yes, it's called Forever Maude.
Okay.
And I don't have I don't have the paper version yet, so I can't put up a little cover of that one. But yeah, it'll be coming out. It's on pre-order right now on Amazon, and it'll be out on the 28th. And I chose that day because that was my mom's birthday. She's passed away, and I really wanted to honor her in some way. So I thought, okay, well, it'll be ready by the 28th. So happy birthday, Mom.
That's awesome. And I actually have a copy of Forever Maude. So I will be reading it this week, and I'll be putting up a post on my blog, twoheartbeats.org. So you guys can go and see my review of Denise's book. And then we will include all of your links on that post on my blog, but then we'll also have a little write-up that goes with this video, so that when the video goes live on Wednesday, because it might be, my blog post might wait till Friday when you have your actual like launch, so it goes in time for launch. But we'll make sure and have your book out there. And what are you going to be putting the price at for Forever Maude?
I'm going to have it 99 cents until the release date, and then it'll go up to $2.99. So if you pre-order it for that, you can get the 99 cents, but after that, it'll go up to $2.99.
Awesome. Okay, so we will make sure and have the link available with this video, so you guys can go and pre-order it and get it for a little bit cheaper. And then Friday it goes live, which I'm super excited about. And we will also put your Twitter and your Facebook so people can come and follow you with the blog post. It has been a pleasure having you here, Denise, and I cannot wait to read the rest of this story. And I hope that whenever you start your next project, because I know there's more in there, that you'll come back and tell us about it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And for all of you watching out there, thank you for joining us here on Write the World. And I'll see you again next week.